I personally think the Copilot for Microsoft 365 features in Teams are among the most valuable. The feature I use most is to use Copilot with my meeting recordings to get more insight from the transcript than the intelligent recap normally provides by default. I've found this invaluable, both in Teams and using that meeting data in Microsoft 365 chat. But with any new technology, particularly when we're talking about the things we say to one another verbally and opening up access to that with your computer, it's important to understand what's going on, where the data comes from, and who has access to it, both to protect yourself and to be able to operate in a way that is conscious of the ethics of using AI. So in this video, I'm going to dig into the Copilot features that are offered around Teams meetings, so you can be really clear on knowing when Copilot is listening and how you can ensure that Copilot definitely isn't listening in on your Teams-based discussions. But before we start, a quick introduction. My name is Nick DeCourcy. I'm the owner of Bright Ideas Agency, a digital transformation consulting company focused on the needs of smaller businesses. So depending on where you live and what laws are in place, for many of us, it has always been perfectly legal to simply turn on audio recording on our cell phone or some other device, drop it into our pocket, and record any meeting that we're participating in. Doing so would make note-taking or follow-up really easy, but this isn't an arrangement that has ever really been normalised, and I think most people on all sides of most business transactions would find this to be an ethical violation, if not a legal one. In general, where any recording has taken place, we've let people know, either by telling them or conspicuously placing the recording device, or just through signage in our meeting spaces. And this is a standard that's found its way into the virtual age. If you start a recording on a Teams meeting, Teams automatically tells everyone they are being recorded. And I think generally this standard is so ubiquitous because of ethics, because of laws, and because of our social norms, that the expectation is that if you didn't see this, or you weren't alerted to it, you aren't being recorded. And in your Teams interface, you can always keep track of exactly what might be recording or listening in on your conversation, whether it's a video recording, just a transcription, or now we also get UI indicators that Copilot is enabled in that meeting. So let's dig into what's happening here. Has Copilot now added itself to the growing list of digital devices that just listen to us all the time in the hopes of being able to sell us that new tool we happen to be talking to our wives about over breakfast? Or is the reality of how this technology works more nuanced? The most obvious and understandable situation for using Copilot is to use it with a meeting that was recorded, or at least transcribed, to check back or to catch up afterwards. For example, here I'm using Copilot to ask specific questions of a meeting recording in the intelligent recap screen in Teams. This demo, like all the demos you'll see in this video, is a simulation using demo accounts and data. This is a great way to supercharge the value you've previously got from Intelligent Recap by getting information exactly as you need it. These features leverage the meeting transcript rather than the video recording itself, and can only access the portion of the meeting that has been transcribed. This means that if you start recording or transcription late, or you turn it off for portions of the meeting, Copilot will be limited to the component that was transcribed. This can be important for the purposes of confidentiality, but it's also important to understand the impact on Copilot users. The biggest way this impact is felt by Copilot users is that the promises of Copilot to help you catch up with meetings, perhaps ones you're running late for or need to miss entirely, are only as good as your colleagues' memories to press that record button for every meeting. I know I've seen some Copilot for Microsoft 365 users complaining about this, as they join a meeting, open Copilot to catch up, and find there is no transcription to catch up from. Microsoft has promised an upcoming feature where you can proactively opt to follow a meeting you might be missing some or all of. However, this is still going to be limited by those transcripts, and while the participants in the meeting will be reminded to record it, if they don't, you're still going to be out of luck based on my understanding of how this feature is going to work. Right now, there is no way to automatically record or transcribe every single meeting on a tenant level, except with compliance recording, which is a separate topic and not related to Copilot. But if you're the meeting organizer or an admin, there are two approaches you can take to help with this. As the meeting organizer, when you set up your meeting, or at any time until the meeting starts, you can use the meeting settings screen to turn on automatic recording. This tells teams to automatically start recording as soon as the first participant enters the meeting, even if it's not the organizer, and even if the organizer isn't present. This is one way to ensure your Copilot can catch you up on what's going on, but it does have some drawbacks, which I'll cover a little later. The other approach to this, if you're a Teams admin and you've deployed Teams Premium licenses, is to create a meeting template that includes automatic recording. Remember though that this approach is only available for Teams Premium license users and doesn't give you a way to default to recording. It just means that when your users create new meetings, they'll be presented with the auto record template option. Hopefully at some point in the future, Microsoft will come up with some approaches that allow us to automate recording in a less labour-intensive way. So I think that covers the situation with meeting recordings. What about during the meeting? And even, what about meetings that are not recorded at all? Thanks for watching. If you're enjoying the video and it's giving you value, please remember to hit the like button to help it get in front of a bigger audience. Also, if you're not subscribed yet, but you'd like to see more like this, subscribe while you're down there. Here I'm in a meeting where I have Copilot open and the UI isn't indicating that the meeting is being recorded or transcribed. I have a new indicator that is showing me that Copilot is available. But if the recording and transcription is turned off, what does that mean for Copilot to be accessible? And where is it getting its data from? A lot of you probably have questions about this. Does this mean Teams has been secretly transcribing your meetings all along? Does your boss or your IT admin have access to everything you say in Teams? Maybe you were having a discussion about something confidential before everyone else joined a meeting. Can all your colleagues now see what you said? These are logical questions that I know many Teams users would ask. So let's dive into how this actually works. There are two modes under which you can use Copilot in a Teams meeting, and these are controllable by the meeting organizer or through meeting templates or other settings by admins. The first is Copilot with transcription, and the second is Copilot without transcription. The default setting, unless you've changed it as the organizer or someone has changed it in the admin center, is Copilot with transcription. Here, I'm in a meeting that isn't currently being recorded or transcribed, and the meeting's Copilot setting has been set to the default of with transcription. I'm going to open the Copilot panel in the meeting, and as soon as I do, I get a message letting me know I have to turn on transcription to use Copilot. And I can either turn on transcription or decide not to use Copilot. But if I go ahead and turn transcription on, every other participant in the meeting will be alerted to the fact that I turned it on. Once Copilot is open, I can interact with the transcript during the meeting just as I did with the recorded meetings previously. But if you subsequently turn transcription off, Copilot will only have access to the component of the meeting that was transcribed. You could therefore, theoretically, turn transcription on and off multiple times in a meeting, and if you ask Copilot for a summary, it would only have visibility of those topics discussed while the transcript or recording were activated. But then there's that other setting, Copilot without transcription. How does that work? Well, as it implies, it allows you to use Copilot without turning transcription on. Here I'm in a meeting with the setting Copilot without transcription enabled. I just open the Copilot panel and it starts working. No need to turn on transcription or a recording, and while you don't get the visible on-screen alert you do for recording or transcribing, everyone else in the meeting does get to see a UI indicator showing that Copilot is available. Though depending on whether you're Copilot licensed or not, this does vary. The only difference here is that I'm alerted to the fact that I can only use Copilot during the meeting, so any of my interactions with Copilot will disappear as soon as the meeting ends. So how does this work? Clearly, there is a transcript. A transcript for Copilot's use gets initiated when the first user to open Copilot does so. So if you've been in the meeting for 30 minutes before anyone uses Copilot, Copilot only has visibility from minute 31. Whereas if you open it as soon as you join, it has visibility for the entire meeting. Once you've started it, there's no way to turn it off. That transcript is held separately from normal meeting transcripts and is deleted as soon as the meeting ends. And it's not accessible to anyone retrospectively for any reason, including compliance discovery. Now, I do see some issues with this capability. The first is even if the transcription is temporary or ephemeral, from a basic human understanding of what transcription is, that meeting is being transcribed. So I'm not really sure why this line of difference exists. The second is my bigger issue with this. There is only one Copilot transcript, which becomes available to all Copilot users in the meeting from the time the first Copilot user opens it. 99% of the time, this is not going to be a problem, but I do think there is the potential for there to be inadvertent sharing of information with the wrong people using this tool. On the flip side, this isn't the default. A meeting organizer has to select this option, or it has to be set by an admin. Personally, I think in the age of Copilot, we should just normalise recording and transcribing all of our meetings, because everyone can understand the added value AI can offer us when we have that data. While having Copilot use reported in the UI is nice, I think the fact that it just appears without an alert is a weakness. And while it is pretty clear for Copilot users, if you're not licensed for Copilot, all you get is a little information icon you have to mouse over to understand what it is. Microsoft could do a lot to make this clearer. Also, do bear in mind that currently all Copilot use is limited to users within the host tenant, so these options don't apply to external users, whichever option is selected. This means if you want to use Copilot during or after your meetings, you or someone else in your org needs to host that meeting, even if it has external participants. Next, we'll talk about what to do if you don't want Copilot listening in. But first, I want to highlight some other options you have to engage with me and my content. There's a link down below to join my mailing list, and I encourage all of you to do this, as we are now just days away from the release of my first online course, an overview for leaders in SMEs on how to approach AI adoption, and those on my mailing list will be among the first to know about it when it is released. Also, I'm going to be releasing some interesting special offers to celebrate this, and it'll be my mailing list members who get access to those. I look forward to connecting with you there. So what if you don't want Copilot to be used during or after your meeting at all? If you're the meeting organizer, then simply ensure Copilot with transcription is the option selected in the meeting settings, and during the meeting, if someone starts transcription, just turn it back off. In that scenario, Copilot can only work for that part of the meeting that's been transcribed, so if there's no transcription, Copilot isn't going to be working for anyone. If you're not the meeting organizer, you can't see the meeting settings, so there's no way for you to know whether Copilot without transcription has been selected. During the meeting, you'd need to be on the lookout for either the AI icon if you're Copilot licensed, or the information icon if you're not, to pop up to indicate Copilot usage. If you don't want to be on the lookout for these icons popping up during the meeting, the alternative is to have an end-to-end encrypted meeting. However, this is only available if the organizer is licensed for Teams Premium. Alternatively, perhaps you get to the end of a recorded or transcribed meeting and you realise there was content in that meeting you don't want being analysed by Copilot going forward. In this case, the fix is pretty simple. Just delete the transcription of the meeting, and Copilot will no longer have access to that information, whether or not the recording also exists. Do bear in mind though, that not all data that is derivative of that transcription will necessarily disappear because you deleted it, and there are very limited options available to you to do anything about this. While Copilot can't analyse the meeting recording, at least not yet, it's likely that if you want to get rid of the transcript, you're also going to be concerned about the recording. As the meeting organizer, you can delete the transcript, but the person who started the recording has ownership over the video. It's for this reason I mentioned earlier that the auto recording setting for the meeting, that's probably going to be used a lot more now because of Copilot, can end up being a problem. What that means when it's turned on is that the first person who enters the meeting in your organisation, whoever that is, owns that recording that starts automatically. So there is another option that you may want to pair with this setting if you want to ensure you are always the person who owns the recording. Who can bypass the lobby can be set to organiser and co-organiser, so you have complete control over who is first to access the meeting, and so who starts and owns that recording. But just beware with this setting. If you're late to join, no one else will be able to start the meeting, and you'll have to admit everyone before you start whenever you join. So to answer the question I started with, is Copilot listening? Sometimes it is. And it's for reasons like these that it's so vital to have an adoption plan for these tools that includes educating your users on how generative AI generally, and Copilot specifically, works with your data. It's also essential to have policies and understandings within your organisation around what ethical use of AI looks like for you, and how much you want to communicate to your vendors or customers when that AI use impacts their interactions with you. You don't want the first time this comes up in your organisation to be when someone shares a series of Copilot generated quotes from a meeting the person being quoted didn't think was transcribed. The need for this sort of communication and how to plan for it is something I cover in my book, Who's in the Copilot Seat? A guide for leaders in smaller businesses on planning for the adoption of AI. I hope this has provided a useful overview of this topic for you. Do please let me know in the comments what you think about this set of features, both from a technical and business impact perspective. Thanks for watching through to the end. Until the next video, bye bye.